Today, we're going to talk about this, the Chemex coffee maker. There's a load of recipes out there, but we're here to guide you on how to master the Chemex pour-over technique to get the most out of your favourite coffee. My name's Lizzie and I'm all about helping you make better coffee at home and also help you see coffee for more than just caffeine. If you want to make better coffee at home, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. First things first, it's important to note that the way you brew your coffee with the Chemex is going to change depending on what type of coffee you're using and what you want out of your final cup. By the end of this video, you'll understand the best practices and be able to adapt your own recipe depending on the type of coffee you're using, and you'll also understand how making changes at each step of the process can impact your coffee. For this recipe, we'll be using a light roast from Brazil, and we'll be using a 1:17 ratio. What you'll want to keep in mind when choosing your coffee to water ratio is the roast of the beans. With a lighter roast like this one here, you want to have a ratio of around 1:17 or 1:18. For a darker roast, 1:15 works well, and for medium roast, somewhere in the middle works nicely. And here's the reason for this. When we talk about a higher coffee to water ratio, we mean using more water relative to the coffee you're using. So why would you do this with a lighter roast? It comes down to how the beans are roasted. Lighter roast coffees are roasted for a shorter period of time compared to medium or dark roasts. This means they retain more of their original flavours, resulting in a more complex and vibrant taste profile, often with higher acidity. This is why we need more water to adequately extract these flavours. The goal is to achieve a balance where the coffee is neither under-extracted, sour or weak or lacking sweetness, nor is it over-extracted, bitter or harsh. Adjusting the ratio can help to achieve this, but keep in mind that brewing coffee is often a matter of personal preference. These guidelines are a good starting point, but the best ratio ultimately depends on your own taste. The next important thing to remember when using the Chemex is the grind size. Again, this will vary depending on the roast of your coffee. The size of your coffee grounds plays a significant role in the extraction process when brewing coffee. You want a grind that's fine enough that the water can effectively extract the flavours of your coffee, but you also want to make sure it's not so fine that you end up with an over-extracted, bitter taste. Let's consider light roast coffee. Lighter roasts are more dense and harder than darker roasts. This means that it's harder for water to penetrate the coffee particles and extract those flavourful compounds. Therefore, when you're using a lighter roast for a pour-over coffee, it's better to use a finer grind. The smaller coffee particles increase the surface area that comes into contact with the water, which facilitates more efficient extraction of the coffee's flavours. Remember, grind size is not a one-size-fits-all setting. It will change based on different factors, such as the specific coffee bean, roast level, brewing method, and personal taste preference. Experimenting and adjusting based on taste is always a good approach to find what works best for you. Finally, water temperature. For light roast, you want to use slightly hotter water, around 93 to 96 degrees Celsius or 200 to 205 Fahrenheit. With medium roasts, opt for slightly cooler, around 91 to 94 degrees Celsius or 198 to 201 Fahrenheit. For dark roast, 88 to 92 Celsius or 190 to 198 Fahrenheit should work. Darker roasts are less dense and they can easily release bitter flavours if the water is too hot. For that reason, lowering the temperature by leaving it for a few minutes off the boil helps in extracting the smoother, rich flavours characteristic of dark roasts while minimising bitterness. Okay, with that out of the way, let's crack on with the recipe. Let's gather what you need. A grinder, a scale with a timer, or you could time it on your phone, a Chemex paper filters, a gooseneck kettle, and some delicious coffee. We're using this Brazilian yellow bourbon Fazenda Santa Ynez. I'd recommend using a timer the first few times you try this, and once you have the hang of it, you should be able to just use your feeling. By the way, if you want to try this coffee or some other delicious coffees, we currently have 20% off your first subscription order. Just use the code on screen and the link in the description. Okay, time to grind our coffee. We're using the Fellow Ode Gen 2 grinder, which I love for pour-overs. For this coffee, you're aiming for a medium grind, so we'll go with a 5 on this grinder. For this 1:17 ratio, we'll be using 30 grams of beans, so weigh out 30 grams of coffee beans. If you're using a lighter roast, aim for a medium to fine grind, similar to this. A darker roast may require a slightly coarser grind. So next you want to grab a paper from your filter paper box, and there are two ways you can do this. So the first one's really easy. You just take the folded paper, take the first layer, pop it in here with the 3 layers towards the pouring end of the funnel, but make sure that you leave a gap here so that you don't make a vacuum. The second way to fold it is the paper airplane origami method. So as it comes from the box, you unfold it with the seam facing away, and then you fold it in like a paper airplane, pointing away from you. And then you just lift this fold, and then you want to pop it into your Chemex with the pointy edges not touching the funnel, so you maintain that gap. Make sure to give it a good rinse with hot water to get rid of the papery taste and to discard the rinse water. Once you've rinsed out your paper, it's time to add your coffee grounds. So we've added the coffee grounds to the Chemex, and now the general rule when you're blooming is that you want 2 to 3 times the weight of water to the weight of coffee beans. So we've got 30 grams of coffee beans, we need 60 to 90 grams of water. As you bloom, you want to start the timer, and you're aiming for 60 to 90 grams of water. At the 30-second mark, we're going to top it up to 200 mils. This allows gases to escape from the coffee, and it allows the coffee to swell, enabling better extraction. At 90 seconds, we're going to top it all the way up to 500 mils. Now we're at 90 seconds, I'm going to top it all the way up to 500 mils. If the water drains too quickly, try a finer grind. If it drains too slowly, use a coarser grind. So we're up to the 3-minute mark, and we're nearly all dripped through, so that's what you're aiming for. So we're just up to the 4-minute mark, we've completely dripped through, and it's time to discard the filter paper and the coffee grounds. Now we've discarded the filter paper and the coffee grounds, your coffee is ready to enjoy. So grab your favorite mug. Let's give it a taste. It smells like wine. The bergamot flavor in that is so forward. It's beautiful, very unique. The key is to experiment with different variables until you find the perfect recipe that suits your personal taste. Enjoy the process. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know if there's anything you'd like to see in the next video down in the comments. See you next time.